Please remember that these videos are not intended to replace the need to read the pilot's guide and other manuals that accompany each product, including the important product warnings and caution statements in those documents. Now, let's look at some of the amazing capabilities of the GTN models.
TAWS system
To
test.
get started with the GTN, we'll first need to know how to tune our comm and nav frequencies. If we look at the top of our screen of our 700 series, there are several useful data fields contained here. On the left, we'll find our active and standby comm frequencies. The upper right contains our nav frequencies. Most tasks on the GTN are easiest to accomplish using the intuitive touchscreen interface. However, most data entry can still be made using the two knobs on the device, much like on the GNS 430 and 530. Knob functions vary slightly by what mode we're in. On-screen labels will always indicate the functions for each knob. Let's assume we're flying along in map mode, where we'll be spending most of our time in flight. The knob in the upper left will control our comm volume. Press the knob down once, and it will open and close the squelch. Hold it down, and a hold indicator will pop up on the screen. After a moment, the GTN will automatically tune our emergency frequency, 121.5, and set it as our active frequency. The second knob on the device in the bottom right-hand corner is generally a data entry knob. Right now, it will let us tune our standby comm frequency. Notice that the frequency is a light shade of blue. This shade will almost always indicate the field we are currently editing. Holding down on the knob swaps your active and standby frequencies. Tapping the knob, however, once will switch over to the nav field so we can set our standby nav frequency. Again, we can always reference the dynamic labels to know our knob's current function. Due to the compact size of the 600 series, our comm and nav frequencies share the same real estate on the screen. To switch between the two, just press the knob in the bottom right once. Editing and switching between active and standby frequency occurs just like in the 700 series. For many flights using a GTN, setting a direct-to route into the GPS is the easiest and most efficient way to navigate to a destination. We'll start by pushing the dedicated direct-to hard key just above the concentric knob. Anyone familiar with the GNS 430, 530, G1000, or any of Garmin's previous navigators will notice that data entry is exactly the same. So right now we're sitting in Aurora, Colorado, and want to head up to Billings, Montana, which is KBIL. So we select the K by rotating the smaller knob. Then rotate the larger knob to advance to the next letter, and use the smaller knob to select the letter B. Larger knob to advance to the third position, and smaller knob again to select an I. And we'll do the same for the final letter L. Now, we just need to push the knob to select Enter, and again to activate it as our direct-to destination. So to recap, going direct to a destination is as simple as pushing the direct-to button, entering your destination by rotating the concentric knob, and then pushing the knob twice to enter. Now that we know how to change comm frequencies and set a direct-to destination without touching the screen, we have all the basic fundamentals of flying with the GTN. As you become more familiar with the GTN, you'll find that most functions can be accessed with just a few flicks of the finger. To make touchscreen data entry even easier, we've built in a bezel along the sides of the screen and a finger rail at the bottom of the screen for hand stabilization. Garmin's touch technology is designed to minimize accidental data entry due to fingers skipping or sliding across the screen in response to the aircraft in turbulence. Notice the small arrows between your active and standby comm frequencies. This is letting us know that we can flip-flop the two frequencies by touching the active frequency. If we touch the standby field, we now have the opportunity to enter our frequency with a keypad. If we take off from Aurora, Colorado, and they tell us to contact Denver approach on 125.25, we can just press 1, 2525. We then have the choice to immediately set it as our active frequency by touching the Transfer Soft key, or we can press Enter to set it as our standby frequency. For now, we'll hit Enter. And when the time comes, just touch it to make it active. Here's the same sequence done on the GTN 600 series. The same process also works on the nav portion of the display. Now, let's take a look at some of the advantages of the touchscreen on the Direct-to interface. We'll press the Direct-to button, and now we can tap where it says Select Waypoint. This will bring up a keypad screen to enter the airport code. Let's say we're heading to Salina, Kansas. We simply tap K, S, L, N. In the bottom corner is a soft key that says Enter. We'll press that, then hit Activate, and we're off to Salina. Because of the smaller display size on the 600 series, entering letters into it is a bit different. At the bottom here, we can touch a block of letters near the one we want to enter. Or we can also slide our finger across these smaller letters until we reach the one we're looking for. Then we can select the specific letter we want from the larger set just above that. So as you can tell, using the touchscreen is often much faster and much easier than using the knobs. Should the need arise, the GTN can quickly find and navigate us towards our nearest airport with ease. To do this, we just press Direct-to and select the tab for Nearest Airport. From here, we can highlight the nearest airport, press Activate, and we're on our way. Here's how this looks on the 600 series. Here's the Direct-to button, then Nearest Airport, highlight the nearest airport, and Activate. There are also a couple of other great shortcuts built into the GTN. If we select Direct-to and touch Select Waypoint to do data entry, we'll see a little magnifying glass that says Find. If we press that, it's going to bring up a list of all our recent airports. We can also find a list of all our nearest airports this way, or if we've entered a flight plan, which we'll touch on more in a few minutes, we can find all of our waypoints in a separate list. Let's switch over to the 600 series. We just choose Direct-to, select Waypoint, and then Find for all of our recent airports. On the GTN, most major functions are never more than 2 taps away. The Home hard key in the upper right-hand side of the device is where we'll usually want to get started. If we want to go to the map, for example, we just press Home and then Map. For traffic, we just go Home and then Traffic. If we want to build a flight plan, we just go Home and then Flight Plan. It doesn't matter what we're doing on the unit, Home will always take us back to a familiar page. If not all functions can be displayed at once, like we see here on the GTN 600 series, we can scroll our finger across the screen to view the rest of the options. Or up and down buttons appear on the screen that allow us to scroll as well. Now, one more important note. The Home key also has a shortcut built into it to get you directly to the navigation page. If you hold down on the Home key on the 600 series, an indicator pops up just before taking you to the CDI page. Notice that the CDI page offers a map button to quickly get you back to the moving map. On the larger 700 series, the default nav page is integrated directly into the map itself. Let's set off on a basic flight using the GTN. We're on the ground at Centennial Airport in Denver, Colorado, and the first thing we want to do is set our comm frequencies. We can do this by pressing Home, then Waypoint Information, and select Airport. From here, we can choose frequencies. We'll know we want ATIS first, so we'll select that and flip it into the active. The next thing we'll want is clearance delivery, so we'll choose that, and it sets it up in my standby. We can then flip it from standby into the active. The next thing we know we'll want is ground, so we'll select that, and that goes into the standby slot. We're going to take a trip down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Normally, we'd be okay flying a direct route, but given the Colorado terrain, this time it's better to stick to the airways. Let's assume we've got our clearance, and we're cleared to the Albuquerque airport, direct Pueblo, Victor 611, Albuquerque VOR, then direct Albuquerque. So first, we'll go to Home, then to Flight Planning. Right there it says Add Waypoint. We'll click the Find key because we know the airport we're at will always be under the nearest. Then we'll select our second waypoint, direct Pueblo. So we'll enter P, U, B. From here, we need to add Victor 611. So we'll select our Pueblo VOR waypoint, and it brings up a list of things we can do with that waypoint. We'll select Victor 611, and we're going to be on it until Albuquerque. So we'll select Albuquerque as the exit waypoint for that airway. The GTN shows us the route we're going to take on the airway. After the airway, we're going to go direct to Albuquerque Airport, so we'll enter one last waypoint. K, A, B, Q. Now that we have the whole flight plan loaded, we can go Home, and then Map to see the whole route. When flying with the GTN, we'll spend most of the time on the map screen. In the bottom right-hand corner, there are dedicated zoom in and zoom out keys. Thanks to the touchscreen, we also have the ability to use our finger to pan around the map and look at what's nearby. When we're zoomed in, we can highlight anything on the map and receive more information about it. If we see an airport, we can touch it and then press Waypoint Info button that appears on the bottom of the screen. If we want an airport diagram, we can touch Preview. If we want to see the approaches they have, we touch Procedures. If we want to look at their runways, we can touch the Runway tab. We can then even select a specific runway to get more information about it. We also have a Frequencies button that we can use to tune an airport's comm and nav frequencies. And if we have a GDL69 weather receiver and the proper XM subscriptions, we can select the Weather tab and see the current conditions there on the ground. In the bottom left of the screen, there's also a small back button. Anytime we select that, we'll be taken to whatever screen we were looking at prior to the one we're on. In this case, it'll take us back to the map screen. Of course, we also could have touched Home and then Map. Now let's take a look at a VOR. To get more information, we can touch that VOR, and the bottom of the screen displays Pueblo VOR. A Next button appears. Anytime we see Next, it means that there's other nearby options for what we might have been trying to select with our finger. In this case, it's Pueblo Airport. If we touch Next here, the GTN will toggle between Pueblo VOR and Pueblo Airport. We'll stay on Pueblo VOR for now and select the Info button at the bottom of the screen. Anytime we see a frequency like the one displayed here, we can always touch it and throw it into our standby. Notice the on-screen animation to let you know the frequency is going into the standby slot. If we're interested in learning more about a nearby airspace, we can also just touch near the border of it. It'll show the information box, which we can select, and it'll give us all the relevant information on that airspace. Now, when you're done panning around the map and you want to recenter your aircraft, all you have to do is touch the back button. At the bottom of the screen, we'll find the Menu button. Menu is your friend. Whenever we select it, we'll get options related to the screen we've been viewing. If we touch it now on the map screen, we get options related to the map page. From here, we can control the amount of detail on the map, turn on or off terrain data, put airways on the map, and more. We can also change the data fields that appear on the map. There's a whole list of options to choose from. Editing flight plans is easier than ever before. Once we have a flight plan loaded on our GTN, we can pan to view the entire route. When we enter pan mode, we'll notice a button in the lower left-hand corner of the screen that reads Graphically Edit Flight Plan. If we select that button, we can then grab any one of the legs of our route and move it as necessary. So, if we want to edit the airway to change from Victor 611 to Victor 389 in order to avoid weather, we touch that leg of our trip and snap it to the intersection we want. If there's more than one choice, it'll show us the various options and let us make our selection. The 600 series works similar. We're in pan mode, and here's the Graphically Edit Flight Plan button. From here, we can grab a leg on the route and move it to another waypoint. When we want the change we just made officially entered into our flight plan, we press Done. If we don't like the change, we can touch the Undo button, which will undo each of the last steps we've taken one by one. Begin taxiing with a GTN and you'll immediately notice a number of features that are meant to enhance your situational awareness. Let's assume we have a flight plan loaded and we're ready to taxi. As we zoom into our current position, Garmin's Safe Taxi Airport diagrams automatically appear where available. There are no settings we have to select to turn on Safe Taxi. It naturally appears when we zoom in close enough. Once we've taken off, we can use the map to its full potential. The GTN has the built-in capability to display terrain data. Red shows terrain within 100 feet below our altitude or higher. Yellow indicates terrain we need to be cautious of, anything within 1,000 feet of our altitude. For details on any piece of terrain, we can simply touch the screen and the elevation under our finger will be shown on the display. We can also go to the home screen and look at a dedicated terrain page. In addition to terrain, we can also overlay traffic, next red weather, and lightning data on our map with the proper equipment and subscriptions. These functions can also be accessed by going to Home and then selecting Traffic or Weather. Should we want to switch from GPS course data on the remote CDI to a VOR, there's a button at the bottom of the GTN 700 series map screen to do so. On the 600 series, we can press and hold the Home button to get to the default nav page. There's a CDI button here to switch between GPS and VLOC. The very bottom of both screens offer full-time enunciation so we can verify whether we're flying with GPS or VLOC information at any time with one quick glance. On the GTN, if we're approaching our final destination, we can prepare ahead of time by loading an approach. To do so, we select Home, then Procedure, and then Approach. From here, we can select what approach we want. Today, we'll say they're using ILS runway 8, and we know that it's in a radar environment, so we're expecting our transition to be vectors. If a different transition had been assigned, we would touch vectors to select the correct transition. If they had cleared us on this approach, we'd want to activate it. But at this point, we're just anticipating it, so we'll select Load Approach. Since it's an ILS approach, the GTN went ahead and tuned our localizer frequency into the standby. From there, we can flip it into the active. Once the controller begins vectoring us, we can go to Home page, and then Procedure, and choose Activate Vectors to Final. The approach is loaded and ready to go. Here's the same procedure on a 600 series. We select Home, Procedure, and then Approach. Then we select the approach we want and press Load Approach. One more handy feature for approaches in the 700 series is built-in charts. The GTN knows we just loaded the ILS Runway 8, and we can actually bring up that approach plate in a full screen view. Here we can see all our minimums and relevant information we normally find on the paper charts. If we are using Garmin Chart View powered by Jeppesen, we also have the ability to overlay the plan view of the approach plate directly on the moving map.
For more than a decade, Garmin's GNS 430 and 530 have become the best-selling line of integrated GPS, comm, and nav systems in the general aviation industry. Today, more than 100,000 GNS systems fly the skies. But just like magic, that's all about to change. Behold Garmin's GTN 650 and 750 series. The next evolution in avionics.